Welcome to the Put on Waivers Media Group, home of the Put on Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
And welcome everybody to the glorious episode of the Put on Raiders podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, along with Ryan Holmes, and we are podcasting. I'm podcasting on the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. It's an overcast day, first day of the Major League season. So I'm excited about that. I hope everybody has a great season, unless your team plays in Chavez Ravine. Ryan Holmes is on the road, Midwest style today. He's just chilling out there, doing some things. So, Ryan, how you doing today? Haven't talked to you in a while.
Doing good, yeah. But my February, March, April, May, June, it's very, very packed. I don't have a lot of free time, but good to jump back on and talk a little Raiders football.
All right, so yeah, the beginning of this off season, talked about how much money they had, talked about all the team needs, the number one corner, number one wide receiver. Like there's some like do we truly trust the offensive line as currently constructed? Like could they get better there? They made some choices, and they've got some people from the kind of, I guess, getting Geno Smith and then getting people off the scrap heap a little bit, as far as hoping that. I mean, some of the guys are decent players, but nobody who's going to, they're like borderline starters in the league. This is kind of your first time to get a chance to kind of come on the show and talk about what they've done in the offseason. What are your thoughts about how the Raiders offseason is shaping up right now?
Yeah, I think the most important thing in the offseason was to figure out the quarterback position. And I think they've done that with Geno Smith. Now, they haven't come to agreement on the extension yet. I would expect that to happen in the coming weeks. I don't think Geno's going to play on a one-year deal. And the Raiders made the trade and gave up a third-round pick. So I'd expect them to work it out. It probably is coming down to guaranteed money. And Geno wants a little bit more than the Raiders are probably offering. But there's going to be a middle ground. I do think they're going to come together. So they checked that box. I would have liked them to be a little bit more aggressive in free agency, retaining some of their own guys, losing Spillane, losing Merrick. Now those guys got paid, but it's almost like it's the cost of doing business, as you say in professional sports. Like the cap's going up. Those guys are now paid as top 5, top 10 players of their position, but 2 years from now, they're not going to be, because as free agents come to the market, and then in 2026 and 2027, those AAVs are only going to go up. I would have liked to have seen those guys retained. I am a huge Jeremy Chin fan. I'm glad they brought in Jeremy Chin on a 2-year deal. He's the only player, I didn't realize this till this morning, that they gave a multi-year deal to in free agency. Everyone else is on a 1-year deal except for Alex Kappa, but there is a clear out after 1 year in that deal. If Alex Kappa doesn't work out, he's going to get released after the season with very minimal cap hit going into 2026. So getting Malcolm Kuntz back was huge, and that's something I talked about all going since the injury last year. And I know a lot of people were big Chason fans. I'm a Kuntz guy over Chason. I've explained it multiple times on this show. I'm glad they got him back on a 1-year deal to put him on the defensive line. So they took care of pass rusher. I believe they did replace Merrick. Jeremy Chin is a very equal player to what Merrick was. He just doesn't know the defense. There's a little bit more versatility. You can move him around and do different things. He can play nickel linebacker. He can play in the slot. If you're playing a lot of zone, he can play the deep half. So I do like that move. But like I said, I would have liked the rest of the guys are basically depth pieces. Landon Roberts is a 2-down guy. He's not going to be on the field on third downs. You got him for a very reasonable cost. He's going to help the run defense. But you still need to stop Patrick Mahomes in this division, and Landon Roberts doesn't help you do that. Lonnie Johnson is on a very minimal salary. He might not make the team, and if he does, it's going to be a special teams guy backup. Raheem Mostert's going to be a backup. Darnay Holmes, 4th, 5th corner. Zach Carter might not make the team. Photo maybe as a run stuffer, depending on how the draft goes, but the Raiders still have a ton of holes, and we still have the draft. I expect them to be very aggressive moving down. I expect them to move down a couple times to try to get more picks. They've added 11 players. They have a lot of space left on this roster. There's just not a lot of guys left in free agency that they can go out and get. So, and this is kind of when they hired Pete Carroll, and it's a 3 or 4 year window. This was kind of my concern going back to then. But it's starting to make sense to me when you look at it from a bigger picture that Spytek's in here to build through the draft. Pete Carroll was brought in. I know they said win now, but I'm getting more of the he's here just to kind of stabilize everything for 2 or 3 years, get this thing going in the right direction. I don't expect this to be a playoff team based on what they've done so far. Um, and Pete Carroll's there to build the culture, build the organization, and try to get them to 7, 8, 9 wins this year, try to get to 10, 11 wins next year and see what happens. They're in a win now, but they're not in a win now mode. So it'll be very interesting to see where they go in the draft. I know a lot of fans are chomping at the bit at Ashton Genty, and I like Genty, but I just don't think he fits with what they've done this offseason. Like they need they're they need to build this roster with people at several positions that are bigger difference makers than running back. And the more I thought about it, it's like they need a wide receiver and a running back, as you mentioned earlier, and a defensive tackle, and another
Okay.
corner, and a starting linebacker. So, does it make sense to put all the eggs in the basket of a running back if the offensive line isn't going to open up enough holes for him? And this team is probably not going to the playoffs next year, anyways. When you have a running back that's going to be around for 5 years before you have to pick up a fifth year option. And when you take a running back in the top 10 and you have to pick up a fifth year option, that's a huge number. So I think you're probably better off trading down if you want Genty and taking him in the teens if he's there. And if not, take a wide receiver and get a running back in the second or third round. This is not a great wide receiver draft. So if you're trying to get a wide receiver and a running back, I think it makes more sense to take the wide receiver first because the
Yeah.
running back depth, you can get two of them. But
Yeah.
again, the offensive line still has to open up holes. So I do like the Missouri kid, Armand Membo. Like if the Raiders end up taking him and you want to slide him inside, or you want to slide,
Glaze.
Glaze, if you want to move Glaze to the left tackle, if something happens to Colton Miller, like you can never have enough linemen. All off season, we've been talking about build through the trenches, and now everyone's enamored with skill players. So we'll see what John Spytek does.
Yeah, I mean, Vegas number came out. I guess 5.5 wins for the Raiders.
Second
Um,
worst, or no, third worst in the league. They
so
don't think the Raiders are going to be any good.
yeah, that's the third worst in the league. That's not a good thing. I do think that for me, my thing is this is like if you're going to just like I get the whole stability thing, but like if you have Geno Smith and you have Pete Carroll, even if the roster isn't great around them, those guys are gonna find a way to keep you out of the place you need to be as far as getting a future quarterback. So I mean, and then is how much like how good is at the top end? How good is Geno? Like you know what I mean? Like I mean, especially if you're gonna if and then it's the other side is like if you're going to like put Geno back there. Like his Achilles his thing his Achilles heel last year was hey he didn't have a good offensive line. So I thought for sure that they would just do whatever they could to beef up the offensive line, and the draft is still coming.
They
But
may.
go out. I mean, they may. If you look at the past drafts that Pete Carroll's had, I mean, I think his first draft in 2010, he took an offensive lineman with the first pick. So like, I mean, it's possible. But I mean, that's just still something that I would think that they have to do because he also needs weapons because a lot of his a lot of his touchdown passes. I mean, he had guys who he had in Jigba, he had DK Metcalf,
Metcalf,
the
Lockett.
Metcalf, Lockett. I mean, and also had a really good last year had a really good running back tandem where with Charbonnet and Walker too. So I mean, they have a lot of work to do. We'll see how much that we'll see how that goes. We'll see how long of a deal is how long the deal is because do you want if you go through these do you want to have him be there till he's 38 years old and you still don't have a future quarterback on the roster? Like, I mean, that's something that I think for people like me and you worry about. I'm not, maybe not Ray Nation who just wants just wants a running back who they think is going to be the next Marshawn Lynch.
I'm not ruling out Sanders at 6. If Sanders, I know they traded for Geno, I know they gave up
Yes.
a third round pick, but if they're building this thing out and they don't think Sanders is ready to play year one, which he won't play over Geno Smith. Maybe the argument right now between Geno Smith and the Raiders is the guaranteed money into that third year. It's because
Yeah.
Gino probably wants security for 3, and the Raiders are probably in the probably 2. You can't. This is the problem I have. Is everyone says, "Well, wait till the next year's draft. The next year's draft better. Wait till the next draft. Wait for Arch Manning." Every team in the league is saying that. When you're in a position to take one, you need to take one. Um, Unless they believe Gino's going to be good for 3 years, then I'm okay waiting. I'm completely against, and everyone that listens to the show knows this, taking the guy in the third or fourth round and grooming him and developing him. That never works.
Yeah.
So, um, like I said, I wouldn't rule it out. If Sanders is there at 6 and I'm the Raiders and they take him, I understand why. Like, you have to take the shot. What if Geno Smith, the clock strikes midnight and he turns into what happened to Kirk Cousins last year? Do you think the Falcons are upset that they took Michael Penix when they just signed Kirk Cousins? So you got to keep taking bites of the apple. Now, having said that, they could still take one later, but that doesn't rule them out of next year's class or the year after that. The worst position you can be in is winning 7, 8, 9 games and
Yep.
being where the Pittsburgh Steelers are right now, where you had to take Kenny Pickett at 20, and now they need another quarterback and they're picking at 21, and they may have to reach for a second round guy and take him in the first. So we'll see. I do like that they're giving themselves flexibility. I've seen a lot of Raider fans twist this and be like, well, they need to extend Colton Miller and they need to extend um, Jacoby Myers and they need rooms to do that. They can do that with cap. They don't need $50 million to do that. This is a cash issue that we've talked about. The Raiders don't spend cash. That was the problem last year, and they're in the bottom third in the league right now in cash spent on the roster. That'll change when the Geno contract comes through. But if this team wants to be competitive and they want to be where the Chiefs and where the Packers are right now and where the Eagles are, they need to be in the top 7 or 8 in spending. There's no reason with the money that's flowing into Vegas why they're not, unless Mark Davis is just tight with the pocketbook. So until they start spending real money on the roster, then it's going to be very difficult for them to keep hitting in the draft. And then what you saw happen is they hit on a couple guys, Merrick, they hit on Hobbs, and then they don't re-sign them because the market dictated that they were too expensive. And I agree with the Hobbs one. I would not have paid him what he got.
Yeah.
And who
I,
said
yeah.
Colton Miller is going to be here long term? They may take a tackle at 6.
Yeah.
And then I know I like DJ Glaze. I think he can be a solid starter at right tackle for years to come, but maybe they're not sold on him. Maybe they want to take Mimbo, put him in there, slide Glaze inside to guard, or just be ready if they don't want to re-sign Colton Miller after next year because he's going to be a free agent. Maybe
Yeah.
he's in his 30s. He's had a little bit of injuries. Like maybe they decide, okay, we're gonna,
He maybe he wants to go into a winner, like something like that. So
or maybe you know what the market for Colton Miller is going to be if he gets there. Raider fans
yeah.
don't want to know what it's going to be. They didn't want
Yes.
to pay Merrigan Spillane. Colton Miller is going to be about twice what those guys got.
So here's the thing that I kind of wanted to kind of talk to you too is about what this isn't they're not playing in the Coliseum anymore. They're not playing in Oakland anymore. I mean we've both been to Allegiant multiple times. I mean it's no I mean we look at the Forbes value comes out all the time, and the Raiders have gone from the 20 in the late 20s to now in the top 10. What is the real I mean, now that you know about Mark, but what do you think the real deal is about the non cash spending for this team? Because it just seems like they should be at the very least because you kind of get what you pay for. If you keep paying for bottom kind of players, or are guys who, like you talked about, may not even make the team. How can you expect to compete at any level?
Well, that's the thing. I don't think they were trying to this year. I think this is a more of set the organization in the right direction, culture, add a couple of pieces, and make a bigger move next year, which I'm okay with. Like this wasn't a great free agent class. Like I would have paid to keep some of their own players that know the system that have been in the building, like Merrick and Spillane. I wasn't going to go out on the market and just spend because they had money. That's not going to work if you start overpaying all these guys you know nothing about. So we'll see what happens next year. The problem is like I said, the top free agents don't get to the market. The other teams are
Yes.
overpaying to keep their guys. Like we look at these lists now, but like when you looked at the free agent class for this year, it wasn't great. And then all of the guys stayed with their teams for the most part a week before free agency, except for the Raiders and a couple other teams. Like you can't bank on that. So I'm okay with slow building this because I don't have any grandeur ideas that this team is going to the playoffs and winning a playoff game next year. I think they could get into the 7 to 8 win total, which is kind of just get this thing going in the right direction. The problem is hiring Pete Carroll doesn't match with that. If your expectation is Super Bowl winning coach, multiple playoff appearances in the next 2 or 3 years,
Yeah.
getting to an AFC championship game, that's not what's going on. Like this is build this thing in the right direction, slow play it. Maybe if they add the right pieces in the draft and capitalize on free agency, the problem is the quarterback and the coach aren't on that timeline.
No, they're not. I think one thing I wanted to push back on is like this whole thing about like people were saying like Corey like because of Corey Littleton and because of Joyner, like do you really want to spend money in free agency? Like I mean that's just like that's the same philosophy people use when it comes to not drafting a quarterback in the first round. Oh look you want to draft the next Jamarcus? Like I mean like for those folks, do you even get out of bed? Like, you know what I'm saying? Because you might actually trip and fall. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what are we doing here as far as that goes? But like, that's why I worry about like when you push back, like, hey, wait till next year, stuff like that. I get a little worried because it's like, like you said, like guys don't like the free agency is kind of fool's gold as far as that goes because the people who you really want like the T Higgins of the world, people like that. They never end up
Not getting them.
actually. You're not getting those guys because teams are going. Even the Bengals who don't spend money at all historically don't spend money. They just spent like $1 billion on both of their wide receivers. So like I mean so like so like you end up getting the Alex Kappas of the world in free agency instead of getting like the big time star players. And because the free agency is not really what is all cracked up to be because teams do not let those guys go.
In all fairness, they did sign Christian Wilkins last year, who is a big time player.
They,
And I can't believe the Dolphins
yes.
let him go, but the Dolphins spent so much money on Waddle and Hill and Tua and Armstead that they kind of were backed into a corner. So that's like a once in a 10-year free agent signing for
Yeah.
teams. Um, he's going to be back on this roster, and he's going to be on that defensive line with Coons and Williams, and I could see them adding Mason Graham to that defensive line as well. So um, the the issue I have, and just following along on social media, is everyone's diehard for Genti. Like, we need a running back at 6. We need a running back. Just because the running backs were so bad, it's like you dangle a carrot in front of them, and they're running to, well, we were so bad at this, let's just take this position. But the value at running back at 6, unless he's an elite prospect,
Dickerson.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, is there a chance he's some version of Emmitt Smith? Yeah, I do. I think the comp for Ashton Genty is Emmitt Smith, who's in the Hall of Fame. Like, I'd love to get a Hall of Famer, but he better be that, because if he's not, if he turns into Josh Jacobs, is that worth the 6th pick? No, it's not. Not in
No,
this draft. So
100%.
the variance of what he can be, and then like the ceiling of what he could be, I think is bigger than people are putting out there. I do think he does struggle when trying to run routes. I think he does struggle in pass protection. Now he's got tremendous body control, balance, contact. Like, he can break long runs. You can't really count on that day in and day out. And when teams start packing the box, it's going to be harder for him in the NFL. He's 5'8". He's not Barry Sanders. Like, he doesn't have that kind of elusiveness. And then on the flip side, you just traded for Geno. Like, you need to get weapons for Geno to throw the ball to. You didn't trade for Geno and give him a big contract to have him turn around and hand the ball off 35 or 40 times a game. I don't
Yeah.
think that's going to happen either. So it's going to be interesting where they go and how they address the running back and the wide receiver. If they take Genty, I'll be fine with it. As long as we understand that, like, he may not be generational. He might just be a very good player.
Yeah.
But running backs don't dominate the game as much as you can with a pass rusher, with a left tackle, with a corner, like, or a quarterback. Like, I would much rather take a quarterback and be wrong than take a running back at 6 and not give him a second contract, or a running back at 6 and he gets hurt, or a running back at 6 and then, he doesn't turn out to be what everyone hopes he's going to be. Because at the end of the day, the quarterback is what drives everything. And I'd rather have two quarterbacks and have a guy waiting and not have to go through this every offseason. As long as the team is comfortable with Shador. I'm not saying just take Shador because he's Shador. Like if the team has a high grade on him and he's there, it's a real conversation.
Yeah, I mean, at 6, it would be. It would. I mean, I think somebody put out a tweet the other day, a kind of poll between for Raider Nation. If it's Genty and Shador, at 6, what do you do?
I would
And
take Shador just because of this running back draft.
yeah, 100. And like, I mean, I'm with you. I mean,
And then
we
take two
are
running backs later.
exactly. I mean, you're gonna need a tandem anyway. But like the overwhelm, but I just wrote in, I just tweeted insane because after it because the majority of the Raider Nation wanted Genty over Shador Sanders, and I was just like, listen, like I mean, that's just I don't. To me, it's like it is what it is. But like everybody's entitled to their opinion. But as far as team, I mean, like you're not gonna with this group of with this head coach and this quarterback, you're probably not going to be in the top 10 again. And
Hopefully.
so like,
ESPN thinks they're going to be in the top three.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, maybe Gino crashes and burns like Kirk Cousins, and you're back here again next year. But but on average, those guys usually win between 7 and 9 games. So just law of averages, just looking at that, and then I mean, so to just get a guy. I mean, just get in the habit of taking quarterbacks. I mean, when the Patriots had Tom Brady, how many times did they take quarterbacks? Like they took quarterbacks pretty frequently for a team that had an all time great quarterback of all time. So like I mean, Joe Montana was on the team sitting chilling, and they still acquired Steve Young. For those who are old enough to remember that, so like I mean, it's nothing wrong with adding to that quarterback room, just like any other position. I think the Raider Nation is so worried about being embarrassed by a bad quarterback play. I just don't even if you ask the quarterback, it may actually work. It may actually work. It may actually be your future quarterback. So and then in this draft, for those who are like, oh, like I like Genty a lot too, but like you said, like just pop on a tape of some of these, the Kalen Johnsons and the
Hampton,
Devin Neals, the Mario Hampton. Like there's a
Judkins,
lot.
Henderson.
I mean, there's a lot of really good running backs in this draft, and you're gonna need a combination of two guys anyway. And then you gotta look at your own tweets too, because a lot of you guys were the ones who were screaming for, I can't wait for Zamir White to get his opportunity, and look what happened when he got his opportunity.
I think with the running back and the whole generational thing, we need to stop saying everyone's generational every
Yes.
offseason.
Oh my God. Yes.
Generational means once in a generation. It doesn't mean once every year. And I was a huge Darren McFadden guy. I was wrong. Darren McFadden didn't turn out to be what everyone thought he was going to be. We all thought Darren McFadden was generational when the Raiders took him. Turns out Michael Bush was probably the better running back at the end of the day, and they took him in the
Mm,
fourth round. So we'll see. Like I'll root for Genty if they take him. I understand why they took him,
yeah.
but I do think the way that they're building this roster leads me to believe they're probably going to go in another direction, whether it's offensive line down, they could take a quarterback, they could take a wide receiver. And this isn't a great wide receiver class. So like if you don't get one in the first or second round, like you're
Yeah.
probably rolling
Yeah.
out and you're playing Myers, Tucker, and whoever the third receiver is going to be. It's not going to be a great bunch of pass catchers for the Raiders next year if you don't take a guy in the first or second round.
Yeah, and they do. I mean, I mean, they do need. I know people are. We have to. We also got to be truthful about what's on the roster too. Like, I don't like. How do you see Trey Tucker? Because I think people are really out here talking about Trey Tucker like he's I don't know. Like he's like he's a great option here. I mean, he's just not a guy who I think is going to be a star receiver. So like you do need to get a guy who to play opposite Jacoby Myers because like he just like you can't as good as Myers can be at times. He does need some lighten the load a little bit, but with a real receiver on the other side.
I see Tucker more as like a third, like a complimentary guy, a speed guy on the outside. I think he struggles with press. I don't think that he's shifty enough to put inside in the slot. I don't want to call him a gimmick or gadget player, but like he's trending that way. And I do think the Raiders need a real X receiver to put on the outside, a big physical guy that can win one-on-one, that can win in the red zone, and pair with Jacoby Myers, who's going to work underneath mostly. And it's funny because when people talk about players that just aren't that good in professional sports, the average fan goes, "Oh, he's just an average this." You know how hard it is to be an average anything in a professional
Yes,
sports league?
that's true.
Like, I work for a Major League Baseball team. I would kill if we had an average player at every position on the field. We don't.
Mm,
Like, it's really hard to get an average player at a position.
yeah, it is.
Most of
Yeah,
these guys are fringe or marginal players.
yeah. No question about it. Platoon players, if you will. Worst case scenario for the draft. For the draft. So if you're sitting at 6, and the 5 guys go ahead of you, the 5 guys. What is the worst situation for them to be in, as far as like, the best would be like, hey, you get to choose between, Genty and Shador and Mason Graham, people like that. But what is the scenario where like it's almost murder if they can't move back because of the guys, the five guys who went in front of them.
I don't think I see that scenario because I think there's 6 or 7 guys I'd be comfortable with.
Okay.
You have Ward Sanders at the top, obviously. I'd be comfortable with either of the tackles if it was Campbell or Mimbo. I'd be comfortable with Graham. I'd be comfortable with Hunter. I'd be comfortable with Carter. So like, I don't think there is a doomsday scenario. And even if Genty ended up being the pick, like I said, I would prefer to trade down if they're going to take Genty, maybe into the 10 to 12 range. But I don't think there's a scenario where the Raiders are going to be in a bad spot because they can use every one of those guys. They can use
Yeah.
Carter, they can
There's
use
so many
Hunter, they can
holes.
use Grant. Add one of those 2 offensive linemen. They can add a corner or a quarterback. So like, um, I don't really see a doomsday scenario come the draft.
No.
Now, if they go running back and then all the wide receivers, we don't think they're going to come off like the Jalen Knowles and the Burdens and the T Max and all those guys. If they all go off in the first round and 4 or 5 of them get popped, then the Raiders might be in a bad situation moving forward as we get into round 2 and 3. If you're looking for
So
a guy to contribute, um, this year to push for a starting spot, because the Raiders right now don't have. I'm not ready to call Trey Tucker a bona fide starting wide receiver where you're comfortable rolling him and Myers out as your 2 guys. I'm not there yet.
Campbell, do you see him as there's been obviously the arm length issues, or not issues, but like, the conversation about his arm length and everything like that. Do you feel like he can play? He's just a quality offensive lineman. Do you think he has the versatility to play, tackle? Do you see him as a tackle in the National Football League, or do you have to might have to move back inside?
I see him as a left tackle. He played at LSU. He played it in the SEC. The arm length yesterday was 33 inches, which is kind of what you need. That's like the minimum. The wingspan's a little short, but he's a good technician. He's got strength in his hands. He's very physical. Now, ideally, if you took him, there's your answer at left guard this year. And then you evaluate Glaze and him to potentially replace Miller. If you're not going to re-sign Miller, then you have in-house candidates. So Rashawn Slater with the Chargers had 33-inch arms, I believe, somewhere around there, and he's coming out. He's been a Pro Bowl left tackle, so I don't think it'll stop him. The tape's just too good to say that he's can't do it.
Yeah, no question about it. All right, so we'll talk
But
about
you want
that.
you want an offensive line next year. Put him or Membo inside at left guard next to Powers Johnson. That'd be a pretty good offensive line.
Who is there space in this line for if they do? I think they're gonna draft offensive lineman in this draft most likely. Is what do you see for Parham's future here? Because it seems like he's really not. I'm
I'm
just
not a big Parham guy. Like
yeah.
I think Parham, when we were talking about how hard it is to be average, I think Parham has a chance to be an average guard. I don't think he's there yet, but I think that he could be. I don't think he's going to be like a Pro Bowler. I don't think he's going to be, plug him in for 10 years, solid starter that you can just count on. I think there's a chance he can get to average. The problem is the guard market is so expensive right now. I don't think the Raiders are gonna make a huge effort to re-sign him next year, because if we start talking about 10 to 15 million dollars a year for Parham, I'm out. Like, I'd let him go and just fill that position another way.
Yeah. Question about it. Are you worried about the defensive line? Everybody's coming off of injuries. Is that something that kind of like, you're worried about just a little bit, as far as, I mean, because season obviously season is coming
I don't think so. Like,
a
injuries
long time from
happen.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Christian Wilkins is probably close to 100% by now. He'll be probably in OTAs and through all the offseason stuff. I'm not worried about Max. Kuntz is a year off he'll be a year off of surgery by the time we get to the next season. You can rotate Tyree in. I still think Adam Butler's a good player. Um, and then I do expect them to actually add, like if you added Graham to that mix or you took a defensive tackle in the second round, I think the defensive line is going to be a strength of this team.
Yeah. They did acquire. Oh, guys, what you gonna say?
It needs to be a strength of this team, but I
I
think it will be.
mean, the defensive and off. I mean, they got to do what they got to do on the offensive line to be able to get the running game going in Chip Kelly's offense. Like that's going to be, you can't be behind the sticks the whole time. Gino's going to get killed. With the teams out here in National Football League. What was your Mostert comes in. I kind of like the move with Mostert because he's not a guy. He can make big plays in your offense without having to get 20 carries. And then this is provided he stays healthy. He's not going to be a guy who's going to get 30 carries a game. But I mean, he's a guy who was a solid veteran option at running back for them.
And he's been with Chip Kelly before. The injuries are a concern. The age is a concern. But he's a year or two off of scoring 21 touchdowns with the Dolphins, where he split time. He wasn't the every down back. So in a rotation, you can get him the ball 12 times, whether it's in the passing game or in the outside, zone runs. I think that he can be a valuable contributor to the team, but he's got to stay healthy. Like he's got to play 15, 16, 17 games. It can't be 4 or 5 games, then he goes on
Yeah.
IR.
Yeah, I mean, they desperately need that veteran spot to be filled as far as that is. It sounds like they picked up a tight end from the Carolina Panthers. It sounds like I mean, I'm not saying writing on the wall, but I mean, do we think that the regular Raiders going to move on from the tight end from Notre
I
Dame?
don't think so. I know a lot of
Yeah.
people think that they're going to move him. I wouldn't move him unless you can get a third or a high fourth round pick for him. The Raiders need 3 or 4 tight ends. People just assume you just need one of everything. You need 3 or 4 tight ends. You need three and then one on the practice squad. They need a blocking tight end. Michael Mayer still isn't quite the blocking tight end we thought he was going to be. He's serviceable, but he's not a dominant blocker by any stretch of the imagination. And then Brock Bowers, you want to split him out and throw him the football. You don't want him in line blocking. So the Raiders definitely, if they want to do 12 personnel, need that. They need three. And preferably you want blocking tight ends behind Bowers because having receiving tight end behind Bowers doesn't really matter because you're not going to throw him the football anyways. So I see him more as the third tight end that you can bring in and count on. He was last year in 2024. PFF had him as the 15th best run blocking tight end in football. He doesn't have a ton of catches. He's not explosive down the field, but he's a big body. He's 260 pounds. And the Raiders can just line him up. And Spytek knows him. He was in Tampa with Thomas being in Carolina for the last 7 years. So he's seen a ton of them. They played him twice a year. So I don't mind that. I've always kind of liked Thomas for what he is. And then to put him in as the third tight end and where they lost Bryant. And the only other tight ends they have are Fotheringham and I think Schinker is still around.
Yeah. The who was it? Who gave Diggs that contract? The Patriots.
Patriots.
So of the veteran option, I mean, is there? I mean, obviously, there's not a great receiving wide receiver in this draft. What are your thoughts about them picking up a veteran here? I mean, I know that Raider fans are clamoring for like Amari Cooper or whatever, but it's Cooper out there. I know, the same thing for me. Um, and I get Keon Allen's out there. What are your thoughts about any of those guys? I mean, because I feel like they just do what they do what Myers does, and I don't want to get the same guy. I mean, because he's old, he's the older option doing the same thing.
I would go get Tyler Lockett. He has chemistry with the quarterback. He's a great leader. He knows Pete Carroll. He can still be a viable starting option. He can get you 50 catches, 800 yards. He can still be a deep threat down the field. I think he fits the offense better, and just having that rapport where him and Gino are already in sync and they know what to do, I think is valuable. Uh, my issue with Keenan Allen is whoever wants Keenan Allen probably didn't watch any Chicago Bears games last year. He was overweight. He was huge. He looked like a jumbo tight end. He can't run. Couldn't run before. He can't run now. Like he's literally 5 yards in a cloud of dust at the wide receiver position right now. And the Raiders don't need that. They need a guy that can play outside, not
Stretch,
inside.
stretch the field.
Because you can move, you're gonna have Bowers inside, and you can move Myers inside, and then you have Tucker and Lockett on the outside as speed threats. So I think Tyler Lockett rounds it out, and then you add like a first or second round wide receiver, and now that room becomes from a glaring weakness to a pretty solid room.
Anybody? I mean, as far as if they really are able to, let's just say somebody comes up and gets Genty, and they get a chance to trade back. Um, Membo's there, like if Malachi Starks is there, like what, like who are some of the guys who you like if the Raiders do trade back?
I think if they trade down to 10 or 12, then I'm eyeballing Will Johnson from Michigan,
Oh,
the corner. He's a playmaker. The Raiders going to play a ton of zone. That's what he can get up and play press, but he's probably better playing in zone as well. He's not a burner. He's going to run in the low 4.5s, maybe 4.48, 4.52. Like he's not a 4.3, low 4.4 guy. So the ball skills are there, the instincts are there, the hands are there. He's from Michigan where Spytech was. So if I'm moving down, it's probably to get a corner. To add to this team really needs another corner.
yeah.
Uh, as I'm thinking of corners, I see a lot of Raider fans throwing out there like we need to extend Bennett, like we have to pay Bennett. Like let's let Bennett play a whole year and start and prove it.
Hey Bennett, they
Bennett
said
wasn't a
that.
starter most of last year. He had a couple of good snaps.
Yes.
He had a couple of good weeks, then got hurt, and everyone's acting like he's a number one shutdown corner. Like I'm not ready to pay Bennett 20 or $25 million. Like he needs to go play for 17 weeks, lock down number one guys, make some plays in the ball, create some turnovers before I'm ready to throw a ton of money at him. So I like how he's trajecting. I like where he's going. But we still have 2 years of Bennett before we have to pay him. Like let's not get crazy here. And anyone that flashes any ability, like throw a ton of money at him. So that's what I would do. If I'm moving down, it's probably for a corner. Um, maybe they like Hampton enough. If Genty comes off, you take Hampton at 12. Like I'd kind of be okay with that. Although I prefer other positions. Maybe they take McMillan if he's there at 12, if they want a big
Yeah.
physical X receiver. Um, Back on the Genty, and I text you this, I just wanted to talk through it real quick. Like if he's such a phenomenal generational Saquon Barkley on steroids, superhero running back, why won't the why are we not talking about the Patriots at 4, adding him next to Drake May, who's a young quarterback that
Mhm.
needs weapons around him, needs skill players. When you bring that up to Raider fans, they're like, why would the Patriots take him at 4? That's stupid. And then at 6, they act like he's a Mount Rushmore all-time NFL running back already. But it'd be stupid to take him at 4. That just doesn't make sense to me. If he's good enough to take at 6, he's good enough to take at 4.
I mean, who's a running back in Jacksonville? Like, why can't I mean, like, why? I mean, why? I mean, I'm sure Liam Cohen could
Etienne.
use. I mean, I'm sure Liam Cohen could use a quality running back in his system too. So, and nobody's talking about him going to Jacksonville either. Last thing I wanted to kind of discuss is the decision making room. Like, are we going to be able to? You think we'll be able to tell early on if this is like more spy tech or more Carroll? Is it just is Carroll brought in to kind of walk spy tech through it a little bit? Like, I mean, this is something where I think some Raider fans are kind of talking about like who, because we've been through it, like where the coach kind of is, there's a GM in place, but the coach is basically running the show. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I see it more as like just like Raider fans are so traumatized that they have to know when it goes bad whose fault it was. I don't care who's making the decisions as long as they win football games.
Mhm.
I don't care if it's a collaboration. I don't care if it's Carroll. I don't care if it's Spytech. Just take good players, build the roster, win football games. We're so eager to who are we going to blame? Whose fault is it? Because we went through the Gruden and Mayock. We went through Dennis Allen and
Ziegler.
Reggie McKenzie. We went through Ziegler and McDaniels. It doesn't matter. On a good football team, everyone's input is involved. Ultimately, there's one decision maker, but I don't think it matters who it is. Now, if this team plummets and wins 3 or 4 games for the next 2 years and everyone cleans house, then maybe we'll find out. I don't expect that to happen, but I don't think it's an issue at all. Like good teams, everyone talks and everyone has input.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, Raider Nation. We're getting ready for the draft. I believe. I'm not sure. How many days left is it till the draft now?
28, 29, something like that.
28, 29. So so before you got time coming here. So I mean, it should be a lot of draft content for you. I mean, I don't know about. I mean, you're gonna see people gonna be throwing out all kind of stuff now. Like I've heard the kid from Washington State is the best receiver in the draft now. So I
I kind
mean,
of like him.
I like him too, but I don't know if he's the best receiver in this draft. But we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But a lot of good stuff going on. So we'll be in touch.
Jackson Dart's going to New Orleans at 7. You didn't know that? That's the newest rumor.
I think he's gonna go. I think he's definitely going to first. I think he's definitely going in the first round. I don't think he's gonna. I think he's gonna go to. I think he could go to the Jet. The Saints would be. Saints would be the Saints. The Saints are worse than the Raiders as far as taking a first round quarterback. Right? They've never taken a first round quarterback since Arch in their history. So which is.
I would argue that if Jake Locker can go 8 and Christian Ponder can go 12, Jackson Dart can
Yes.
go in the first. Not that I would do it, but I'm saying that
Yes,
there
he
is a
definitely
realistic
can.
chance he
He
can.
definitely can. He's definitely on par or better
EJ
prospect than
Manuel went 16th.
He's Emmanuel. He's yeah. It's. I mean, listen. I have no the if you're gonna the Raiders have made mistakes at every position, out there. So making a mistake at quarterback would not be like the end of the world for me. But some Raider fans will be the end of the world. I
Wouldn't
don't
be
under.
for me. Like at least they're
Yeah,
trying.
at least they're trying. At least they're trying. No question about it. All right, Raider
Yeah.
Nation. Ryan, you have a great day. Take
You
care
too.
and enjoy the baseball, brother.
All right. Later.
Later.